Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villachez. Remember this?
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's two-part episode of the Pert Near Outdoors Podcast. This is your host, Billy. I hope you are having a wonderful week. And this week, we're going to dive into some legislative stuff. I've been awfully political lately, haven't I? I hope you like it. This week, we're going to talk about the crossbow legislation that's currently on the table here in New York, in both the Assembly and the Senate. Seems to be some pretty common sense, straightforward legislation that I certainly don't have an issue with and support. And a lot of the organizations that I belong to, National Deer Association being one of them, is in support of this, and I like it. So I'm supporting it. I'm talking about it. So this week, what we're going to do is I've got part one, which is going to be the episode you're hearing right now, is going to be with Rick McDermott, who is the president of the New York Crossbow Coalition. I met up with him at the outdoor show in Hamburg a couple weeks ago, had a nice chat, kind of learned a little bit about the organization, why they exist, what they're doing, what they're trying to get achieved. And so that's going to be part one. And then part two is going to be with a very close family friend of ours, Joel Taylor, who is very important person in my life and someone who this legislation directly impacts, and you'll hear his story and why it means so much to him and hunters alike that are in the situation that he's in, both with his age and with his health, and you'll get an understanding, from maybe a different perspective of what legislation like this could do for our fellow hunters out there that would greatly benefit from a change like this that's being suggested. So that's what we'll hear tonight. Sorry if I'm kind of talking quietly. It sounds like I'm still pretty loud, but the wife is trying to sleep upstairs, and I'm burning that late night candle trying to get this stuff done. So that's why I'm half whispering here. Hope you enjoy the discussions. Share if you could. Would like to get this out there to as many people as possible, and definitely would enjoy some dialogue back and forth. With all due respect, I did, after recording the episode with Joel yesterday, in both the part one and part two, we talked about the New York Bow Hunters organization. I don't belong. I've never interacted with. I don't really honestly know anything about the organization, but they came up several times in these two discussions about their opposition to this legislation. So I did reach out to them today to let them know that we had these discussions and that they were brought up so that they weren't blindsided. I'm not trying to go after anyone or trying to slander any organization. It's just their stance is not necessarily one that I agree with, and I invited them to come on here. So they appreciated that and said that they would talk about it internally and see if there was somebody who would like to come on. So perhaps I think that would be a valuable discussion. I think that's important to have open dialogue back and forth, because a lot of times these organizations or these groups will plant their flag in the ground about how they believe or their thoughts, and my belief is that we're probably all pretty close in our feelings and in our passions for what we do, and we're really not that far apart. But if you look at the stances on things, it often looks that way. So I'm kind of excited about the opportunity, and I hope if any of you are listening that are members of that organization, I would love to have someone on to talk about why you feel the way you feel, and maybe we can all learn a little bit from each other, which would be, I think, very beneficial. So that's that. Housekeeping notes real quick. Shed Fest is rocking and rolling. We're finding lots of sheds. Everybody's having fun. They got a lot of shirts that have gone out the door. I do have stock left in all of the sizes of T-shirts. So just to reiterate, this year is a raffle, not a contest. So if you don't have to find any sheds, all you need to do is be entered in the contest in order to win one of the many prizes that we have from our sponsors. The top prize is a Kafaru pack. That's, if you go on retail, that's a $800 value roughly between the pack and the frame. So it's a heck of an investment. So if you go on to our website and purchase one of the T-shirts, the Shedfest T-shirt, there's two options. There's a $30 option, which gets you also on top of the T-shirt and the raffle entry, it gets you a 1-year membership to the Deer Association, which I strongly support and encourage you to do. But if you just like to buy the shirt and get in on the raffle, there's an option for that as well, and that's $20. So jump on there, get those. We're going to run that right through the drawing on the 9th of April. We're having a party at Windy Brew here in Sheldon, New York, right on 20A between East Aurora and Varysburg. We're doing a party there from 12 to 4. Everybody's welcome to bring their sheds or just come out and hang out. I'm going to buy some stuff, maybe a couple trail cameras, binoculars. I was thinking about, I'll get a few things to do some door prizes on, some raffles to raise some extra funds there for the Deer Association. So from the event, they can go home with some cash in hand of money we made from the event. So we hope to see you there. We'll help you join us over at Windy Brew. Russ has been cooking up some mighty good stuff. They won an award a couple weeks ago at a big brewers convention. So they are kicking ass and taking names, and very proud of our little brewery here in town. So hope to see you there on the 9th. And with that, I'm going to let this rip. Enjoy my talk with Rick, and then watch for part 2 to drop with me and Joel. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and get out there and find some sheds and keep feeding them. Look at that. Set right up.
That's why I got these chairs.
That's right. Yeah, it just feels right. These are perfect chairs. Rick McDermott, right?
Yes.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind of, I guess, perfect timing / late notice. I had a friend, a family friend of ours, Joel Taylor, who is he's big into the crossbow and very interested in this legislation that's on the board right now, and he sent us over an email last weekend, I think it was, wanting to have us get involved with the discussion, because it's kind of a hot topic right now with legislation in both the Assembly and the Senate. So I reached out to you and said, hey, can we get together and talk? And said, hey, you going to be at the show? Sure am. And here we are. So welcome to the program, Rick McDermott.
Yep. Well, thanks, Billy. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. No, you're good. So give everybody a rundown who you are, what you're doing with the Crossbow Coalition, because I think some people may be aware of the coalition, but from what I'm understanding, it's an army of one. You're kind of the guy behind the whole thing, correct? There's probably some people helping you, but
there's people we get that help. But yes, it started out with 3 of us. The other 2 guys have over time dropped out, but this is one of those that I'm very passionate about, that I believe needs to happen.
Yeah.
I started this in 2014, February. Get it right. I started February 2012. 2014 is when we got our first legislation passed. I started after watching a Senate NCON committee meeting where a representative from New York bow hunters came in and said, we're here to represent all bow hunters in New York, and bow hunters are opposed to crossbows. And that was a hold my beer moment because I'm a bow hunter and you don't represent me because, number one, I'm not a member, and number two, you don't represent my view on crossbows. I did not have a crossbow. I didn't start the organization and push for me. I work with handicapped people, seniors, women's groups, youth groups, and people need the ability to get out in the woods. We're bleeding hunters every year, and there's too many that can't get into it and have been forced out of it due to injuries and, unfortunately, age. People talk about, well, everybody with a disability. Age should not be a disability. Everyone's going to go through that at some point. Some people have difficulty earlier than others, but we have that with everything we do. So
Right.
So it started as a Facebook page. A couple of people that I knew, said, where are we going to go with this? Started the process to be incorporated. We were incorporated March 14th of 2012.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
2 days later, we're in a sports exhibit in the Legislative Office Building in Albany. And that was our kickoff, inaugural startup. And that's when we started taking paid membership, and we've been working ever since, growing the organization and getting more people involved.
I had no idea that was the that you guys have been around that long. And I guess I'd seen the ads in the Outdoor News, New York Outdoor News, and with the last couple of years, there's been a lot more discussion around crossbow, and as it pertains to when you can use it during our hunting season here in New York, and that's the big hot topic that our teeth are all sunk into right now. And me personally, I don't own a crossbow, never shot a crossbow, but I have such a hard time accepting the fact that someone who wants to use a crossbow and needs to use a crossbow can't during the entire archery season. I have a problem with that. So the fact that the legislation's on the board right now, the opportunity's there, it's an exciting time that this is all moving forward.
Yes, and it's been contentious for basically the entire time that we've been around. It's getting more and more heated as we go, partly because we're growing more and more support from legislators, and our big stalling point is in the assembly. But last year during the budget season, the governor actually put the full inclusion of crossbows in the archery season in the budget, and there was a lot of discussion in the assembly, and we have a pretty large group of assembly members in the majority party that actually are starting to support this, and there's and the opposition to it continues to shrink.
Yeah.
So I believe we're positioned in a good spot this year, but unfortunately, getting people to make a couple phone calls and actually write a letter, and right now we're actually asking people if they would submit a short 30-second, 60-second video explaining who they are, where they're from, and how long they bow hunted, and what their support is for crossbows in the archery season.
Yeah.
Legislators, the bill sponsors go into offices, and there's still and in this area upstate, we pretty much have all the support from everybody, from what we saw last year. It's basically the Hudson River down into part of Long Island and the city. But when the bill sponsors go in and talk to their other assembly members, trying to get them to be in a position to sign on or support it, they're told, well, we hear too many bow hunters don't want it.
Yeah.
So, and we're not hearing the bow hunters that do want it. So the videos give them the opportunity to we have a library. There's some on the YouTube, on our we have a YouTube channel. We had picked 8 people yesterday, sat here and we recorded them.
Oh, cool.
And they walk into an office and they say, well, bow hunters don't want it. So they open up their phone and they say, well, here's pick a couple. And the more we have, the bigger the library.
Yeah.
It would be great to have 1,000 videos in a library that if they click on them, they all basically are, it's not the same story,
Right.
but it's the same theme.
Yeah.
I'm a bow hunter. I've been a bow hunter since 1960s, and I was bow hunting with a recurve.
Yeah.
And, you know, I support this. They're bow hunter instructors. You know, we teach this. We believe it should be part of the archery season.
Yeah.
And the amount of the opposition continues to shrink. But as you corner something, it fights harder.
Yeah.
So, but everybody says it's not worth it. We'll never get it. So they aren't willing to fight. If they would pitch in and do what we need to do this year,
right.
It'll we have to overload the legislature that drowned out the opposition where they don't even know they exist anymore.
Yeah, with the positives. And I
Yes.
just did a podcast a couple weeks ago with an organization that's focused on like the hunting rights as far as it goes to like the anti-hunters and the animal protection people that want a lot of hunting to go away. But we kind of talked a little bit about this. That organization he wants to focus on where we're fighting outside, not fighting inside with each other. And that's what we have going on here is you have groups of hunters. At the end of the day, we all are passionate about our lifestyle, and I don't want to see any of it go away. But if all we're doing is fighting with each other, we're not paying attention to the actual threats to the lifestyle that we live. And are we even thinking about this rationally? It's an emotional thing. You know, I see, and you can speak to this because it's what you do, but I don't see like rational explanations as to why this is a bad thing, right? The thing that I see online, you see this stuff on these Facebook forums and stuff, like New York Hunters Only or whatever the page is. You see some of these points that people are making, like our woods are going to be overrun with hunters running around, and it's going to ruin my early season hunts where I'm trying to pattern deer. And it's like, what are you even talking about? Like, how many people do you really think it's going to add to the woods just because they can go out with a crossbow? If somebody's that passionate to want to hunt for a month and a half, 2 months of archery, are they really going to be blowing up your spot? You know, is that what you need to worry about? So I don't know what your thoughts are on all that, but if you got people that pop up here and you need
no. Nate,
yeah, shoot away. So I was just asking you, what you're seeing are some of the talking points against the crossbow, and what are your thoughts on some of those? Like, what are the top concerns that bow hunters have about crossbows being allowed? And hold on, before we go to that, what is the legislation that is suggested right now?
Okay, what's introduced right now in the Assembly is the bill number is A1299, and in the Senate it's S 7747. Those bills, in a nutshell, will allow anyone with a junior archery license, which is up through 15, anyone 55 and older, to use a crossbow through the entire archery season. That leaves a slot between 16 and 54. They still get the same 2 weeks. And if any of those have a doctor-certified disability, they will be able to use a crossbow through the entire archery season also. Mm-hmm. It removes the 17-inch minimum width and the 200-pound maximum draw weight. So pretty much all modern crossbows will be legal. That doesn't mean the DEC won't put restrictions on certain, multiple shot crossbows or whatever. But that decision would be out of the legislature and turned over to the DEC. Mm-hmm. Right now, crossbows, the discharge setback is 250 feet. Yep. And a compound and vertical bows are 150. Everybody will be the same, 150.
Yeah.
So another big one is you no longer use a muzzleloader privilege. You have to have an archery privilege. So anybody who has already got an archery license will be good. But anybody who never took an archery class and has only hunted on during this part of the crossbow in the archery season with a muzzleloader privilege will have to take a bow class because they have to get a bow license to do it.
Yeah.
For going forward. Those are the big. There's other little technical changes. Not even, they get very confusing, but it's technical word changes. It really does nothing.
Yeah.
It
But
affects nobody.
all of those proposed changes with this legislation is to me, it's very common sense.
Yes.
It's none of it. I think anybody listening to this, it's like, what are we talking about? It's like, yes, youth should have the ability to use that. It's a very effective tool. A crossbow is. You can be very proficient with it. It can help with kids with getting into it comfort-wise. And then with adults, elder adults, and then people with disabilities, it's outstanding to give them that opportunity to have all that extra time to be in the woods hunting with a weapon that they're comfortable with or the only weapon they're able to use.
Yes.
So it's just to me, it's a no-brainer decision.
When
what are some of the arguments against it?
Well, as you said, it's going to put too many people in the woods. They're going to decimate the deer herd. In every one of the arguments they have is documented in other states that it's not true.
Right.
It doesn't happen. Wisconsin, I believe, was 2000. I'll get the date wrong. About 8 years ago, Wisconsin allowed crossbows during the entire archery season. After 5 years, they made a big stink because more deer were shot with crossbows than vertical bows. And the claim was that's because all the gun hunters are flooding the woods. Well, looking at the data from Wisconsin online, each implement's on a different graph. They're on different scales. So crossbows are like taking off like a rocket.
Yeah.
Archery kills are tapering down. But if I took all the data and you put it on a graph, plotted on a graph with all on the same scale. And
as far as what the parameters are on the X and Y axis,
yes.
It looks like it's a super high growth, but your peak number is not as high.
Well, when you look at it, the year before they started crossbows and archery started tapering off, crossbows started climbing. After 5 years, crossbows exceeded vertical bows by 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But the comment that the claim that it's because all these gun hunters are flooding the woods doesn't hold weight when you put them side by side. There were 5 more deer shot with broadheads. If you add the two together, 5 years, there were 5. It didn't decimate the herd. There were 5 more deer shot.
Right.
And overall deer harvest was higher by a lot more than 5%.
Yeah.
So are there people transitioning over? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the claim that it is every gun hunter is going to grab a crossbow and go out there is not true.
No.
A lot of people, they may try it. They don't, they're used to hunting without all the foliage.
Right.
They're used to hunting after the bugs have gone away,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, and they learn it doesn't. I can't shoot like my gun.
No.
And
And that's like my brother. So Jimmy, my brother, was talking. He wants to make a video to submit to you guys. He has a crossbow. He maybe has killed 1 or 2 deer with it, if that, in the last 4 years, and he uses it during crossbow during that 2-week period. But he's like, it's harder. His opinion is it's harder with a crossbow out of a tree stand than it is a vertical bow because you can't, getting around the tree and, you're trying to get those angles that you've got something side to side. It's not a gun. You can't just brace it on the tree. You've got limbs. You've got things that are moving.
Yeah.
So it is not, if you're sitting in a ground blind with something right in front of you that, you can be on a tripod, sure, it's an easy situation, but there's difficulties that come along with using a crossbow. It's not just a...
And the same is true with all archery equipment.
Right.
If compounds were not easier to use, everybody would still be using a longbow.
Correct. Right.
So
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of these same arguments happened when compound bows came along.
It was yes,
and the archers were arguing that. And I mean, truthfully, if we want to have an argument, there should be a whole season, let alone to traditional, so that they can hunt with an undisturbed deer woods. But that's, what are we going to do? Are we going to hunt for 7 months? It's like.
Well, and the other thing is, if we're going to separate out each implement, okay, right. Do I get a separate season for my pistol?
Right.
Do I get a separate season for my semi-auto rifles versus my bolt-action rifles versus my, on and on and on?
Yeah, we don't need more legislation.
We need to work together.
Yeah. Right.
And we need to get along together. Nobody wants to stop anybody from bow hunting, but we believe that people that want to make that choice. And other states, Michigan, when they allowed it, they found that, and they can start hunting at 10. Mm-hmm. They found that the kids started with crossbows. But as they got to be 16 and 18, and as they got into their that time frame, and a few years later, they started picking up compounds. It's part of it is that toxic masculinity.
Yeah, right.
It's competition.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, he got a compound bow.
I want one.
I want one.
Yeah.
I want to try what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. They some of them give up the crossbow for a while, but they don't hate it.
Right.
They don't knock it, but they might joke to their buddies that still use them.
Right.
Hey, when are you going to get like us? But that's
what we do. That's what we do at camp. We rib on everybody who uses a crossbow during bow season. We're like, come on, what? You're struggling that bad?
It's chest thumping.
Right.
That's all it is.
But that's just good old fashioned razzing. You
Yes.
gotta give the boys a hard time.
Oh yeah, we do that with everything.
Yeah.
What do you need a semi-auto for? Can't you get it with one shot with a bolt?
Right. Exactly.
Why do you need
Why do you need a scope? Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, but that's that's human nature.
It's all part, but that is, like you said, is the fun part of it but to get into these wars and arguments, and I don't want to fight anybody.
Mm-mm.
I just want people to have the right to have freedom of choice.
Yeah.
In an archer, there should be there should be an archery season and a gun season.
Yeah.
We don't need 20 seasons.
No.
Period.
And I guess I'm sure different people have different experiences, but I can speak from my personal experiences in the properties that I hunt. We had this, the early youth season and then the early rifle season this year for does. Yeah. I did not see it make a difference. Really, when you look at the whole season as it lays, I didn't see that make a lick of difference on any of the properties. The private land, most of us chose not to hunt that season because we didn't feel it was necessary because we didn't have the overabundance of does in that early September rifle season. And then, youth season, when you've got that weekend in October when the kids can use a rifle, rifle, right?
Yeah. They can use anything but a crossbow.
Anything but a crossbow, okay, which makes a ton of sense. But the I'll sit out there in a tree stand on that weekend, and if you hear 2 or 3 gunshots, and you really think that's destroying your hunting, for the rest of archery season. So I just think that some people, they get so tied up into you're going to ruin my opportunity at this dream hunt. But what are we really doing? We're trying to impact our goals on what we're trying to achieve on other people and what their wishes and ideas are.
Some of those shots are deer. But I love it when I hear people complaining opening week of duck season.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's out there shooting their guns they're out there hunting. They're hunting with deer. No, they think they're hunting deer.
Yeah.
But it's opening a duck season.
Right. That's the loudest, yeah.
Small game hunters have been around forever. They were around. They've been around through all bow seasons.
Yeah.
I know a woman who got totally harassed in her 70s that used to she's passed on, but she trapped. And she got harassed by somebody because she went in to check her traps, and the guy was in a tree stand right above where she set her trap. It was a climber. He's lucky he didn't trip her trap when he was going up. But he was screaming and cussing her out because she was ruining his hunt. Well, she's legally required to check her traps every 24 hours, and her trap was there for 2 weeks. His tree stand was there for 2 hours.
Right.
So far, the only person that interrupted his deer hunt was him screaming his head off in the woods.
Yep.
Because she would have sauntered in, sauntered out, and the deer don't pay attention to that.
No.
They'll move out, but they'll come back. They know the difference
When there's a threat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a sense. You sit in a room and your hair stands up on the back of your neck. Something's wrong. Somebody's focusing on you. That is from an instinct from when man was not the top of the food chain. That was survival.
Yeah.
You can walk around all summer long and the deer, you look, oh, pretty deer, and the deer just look at you and
They just keep
mosey
walking.
on.
They don't care. Yeah.
You go out there and now you are focusing on them, and they can sense the fact that there's a predator here. You're no longer, when you're there in the summertime, you're not a predator. When you're there during the season, they
You're
feel
sneaking
that.
around.
Yes, and you're focusing on them. That's their survival. It's part of their survival instinct. They didn't lose it because they'd be gone if they didn't.
Right, exactly.
So, but all of that, stuff about ruining the woods. Yes, there'll be a few people walking around. There are going to be people that think that they can do deer drives. They're going to come to a quick realization that it doesn't work like that. You don't get those shots that you did with guns.
No, you can't.
And
it's a bolt. I don't care how fast it's traveling.
Technically, it's an arrow.
Well, it's an arrow, but yeah.
Right. Do
you feel that that's a concern? Is that the verbiage and how people talk about the crossbow as being so much different than a compound?
I think it's, and people are going to say, that I'm wrong, that I'm trying to change something. Well, actually, the bolt, when crossbows started coming back around, people grabbed terms. There is a thing called a bolt. The kings and noblemen didn't want the peasants to have crossbows because they were shooting bolts, short metallic darts. They could take out a knight through his chainmail and armor.
No kidding.
Okay.
I didn't even think about how far back crossbows go. Yeah.
They go back 500 BC at least. Now, those so they didn't have an army of knights, but they were superior soldiers. They were elite forces, and arrows would dent, but they didn't go through. Bolts they had so much power, and they were short, and they were close range. And a warrior, a knight, isn't going to rush you. He's lumbering, clunk, 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 or he's riding a horse. So you only have to stay out of sword range or lance range.
Right.
But as he rides by on the horse, you can hit him in the side with a bolt and take him off his horse.
Right.
Because that's going to penetrate that armor.
Yeah.
And
that's wild. I never thought about that.
So people used to hunt with them back then. Arrows were for hunting. Arrows are long, fletched shafts. Bolts are short, metallic darts. Now, people say, well, you're just trying to change that. Well, think about it this way. What do they call Detroit? The Motor City.
Yeah.
Okay. What motor you got in your truck? No, you got an engine.
Yeah.
Unless you have an electric vehicle, you have an engine.
Yeah. I've been corrected on that before, yeah.
30-round clips.
Yeah.
No, they're magazines. Clips, there are clips, but they feed magazines. A 30-round magazine goes in and feeds the ammunition into your firearm. I only know of one firearm that uses an actual clip, and that was a M1 Garand. The bandoliers were called. They are clips, because when they're done with it, when it shoots till it's out, and then that bandolier pops out, and you slam another one in. But terminologies, it's just people using the wrong terms for things.
Yeah.
So they are standardizing the industry. Yes, people still call them bolts, but they're standardizing the industry more toward arrows.
Yeah.
Because they're hunting shafts.
Yeah, it's what it's what they're called. I mean, it's what they are. You look at it, it's just shorter than a normal arrow.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Well, it's shorter today.
Yeah.
But go back to when they had overdraws. You had the shelf on it. You had short arrows.
Right. On the older compound bow you're talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had overdraw with a you had a platform and you actually pulled the arrow back past the riser. But that was, years ago, and there were issues with that. Because if it's behind the riser and it flops out, then it's going to hit the riser or it's going to hit your hand.
Right.
So there were.
Yeah, I watched my dad when I was a kid. I watched him. We were sitting in a hedgerow, and he drew his bow back and drew his arrow right through his. It was an old Jennings. I think it was an old Jennings bow.
Yeah.
And I watched him draw the arrow right across his finger. It was holding up the arrow, bleeding all over the place. He didn't drop the arrow off. The deer ran away, and then he let the bow down, and his hand's just like bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a fond memory. Yep, I know exactly where we were sitting. That was fun. But I think it's exciting the progress this has. I sent that email that you had sent out that I'm sure there's a bunch of emails that come out, but the one I had that Joel sent us, at the bottom you had a link to your website with all the contacts for the bills. And so I went through this morning and I drafted up 2 different versions of the email, one for the Assembly, one for the Senate, and sent those out. And got a bunch of replies already. A lot of them are more canned replies. That's what you're going to get in that. But
it's an auto response.
Yeah, but I'm, shot that out to, 45, 50 people that are on those 2 committees.
Yeah, there's 30 in
total.
I believe it's 30 in the Assembly and 12 or 13 on the.
That seems about right.
On the Senate, and then we have the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker of the Assembly and the Governor.
Yep.
So that. Those are all the players that are going to be important to get it out of the committee. But also people need to contact their own personal legislators. Most of them in this upstate area are going to already be on our side, but we still are supportive. But we still need to talk to them and if nothing more, thank them for their support.
Yeah.
Because if they don't hear from us this year, but they hear from everybody that doesn't want it, is that going to affect the way that they speak about it? Because it is a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
It's they listen. They tend to. If you have 1 or 2 more, it may not make a difference. But if you have 10 to 20% more, they usually start listening to to the people that vote them in and out of office.
Yeah, and it's fun once you start getting involved in this piece because it is so important. But once you get into a rhythm of those emails and that communication. It's not difficult, but a lot of it, the hardest part is figuring out who it is to contact and then the method of doing so. But once you get that down, you get it figured out, it's a very simple thing to engage with, and then you don't have to always be going back to figure out who are the people I need to reach out to. Like you have that, whether you put a sticky note on your computer or you create an Excel spreadsheet like I did this morning. I created 2 different – I took your sheet on the website and I created 2 different spreadsheets, one for the Senate, one for the Assembly. And I could just, grab the contacts, throw them in there. It's easy. So, it's you got to get involved and share your voice,
Yep. Well, if I will say that if people want to get involved and help, we do have you can check our webpage, NYCrossbowCoalition.com, and we also have a Facebook page, NY Crossbow or New York Crossbow Coalition is the name of the page there, and there's a lot you can get a lot of information, a lot more off our Facebook page because it's a lot quicker to be able to update that than go through and change the web page. So, but there are avenues to see some of the videos that we have that people have submitted, links to those, links to addresses and information about the bills.
Cool.
So. We definitely need everybody that wants to see this. We need some support from everybody.
Yeah. I love it. I'm glad we had the opportunity to sit down. And my game plan is Joel, my dad's buddy, called me yesterday, and he wants to – I've been trying to get him on the podcast for a long time, but he's like, I don't want to do a podcast. Well, he called me yesterday, and he goes, hey, can we do a podcast on the crossbow stuff? I'm like, absolutely. So my game plan is I'm going to probably release this in the next few days. And then I'm going to get together with him next week and kind of get the perspective of somebody who really would greatly benefit from the ability to have this law to pass for him to be able to get out there and hunt like he used to, but he physically can't do anymore unless he's able to use a crossbow. So I think it's important for people to hear the perspective of somebody who this really deeply could impact. Whereas, if you're a physically able 35-year-old guy who's bloodthirsty after a giant buck, like you're only thinking one-track mind about me. You're not thinking about the other people around you that have the same rights and the same, desires, and they just might not be able to do it the same way you do. And
Right.
why shouldn't they have that opportunity?
Well, when you bring that up, there was a post once. Somebody mentioned when the first year they had the youth hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how would you feel if you've been targeting a deer all summer long, and some kid goes out there and shoots it before you have a chance with your bow? I said, guess what? I'm going to shake his hand and congratulate him because, hey, it's not about me.
Right.
It's not. Yes, you're going to be mad though if your neighbor shoots that deer. You're going to be mad whoever shoots that deer. We're supposed to be sportsmen, and it's sportsmanship. Unless you own 1,000 acres and it's all yours and that deer never leaves it, you can't say somebody shot my deer.
Yeah.
It's not your deer till it's been shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need
the deer you've targeted.
Yeah.
But you also have to be understood that somebody else is targeting that deer too. So when you shoot it, they're mad too.
Yeah, right.
So we need to make that not happen.
Yeah, we got to bring all of us as hunters back to the true north of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And if that's how we're all guilty of it. You get after something, you really want it bad, and you don't get it, and you're bummed about it. But I think if you kind of start to take a step back a little bit and look at it all, it's like, what are we really doing here? It's like if some kid or somebody else or your neighbor, hey, on to the next one. I think we got bigger fish to fry in this life than we do worrying about stuff like that.
When I started hunting 40-some years ago, when somebody got a deer, you went over to see it.
Yeah.
You wanted to see, and congratulate them because wow, now it's. I don't want to go. It's probably the deer I was looking for. It's like we need to be sportsmanship needs to be relearned.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we all want it to be mine, but hey, it's being in the right place at the right time. And when that deer decided to walk past him instead of you, it was his shot.
Yeah.
And like you said, we need to move on.
It's easy as that. It's simple. So appreciate what you're doing, and we'll get this out there, and hopefully people enjoy the discussion and check out the New York Crossbow Coalition.
All right. Thanks, Billy.
Sound good? Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
Yep.